We're officially in the top half of our Week 17 matchups, and there's still 3 NFC South teams available. Could the Panthers really be the way to win big? Stay tuned. Welcome to Summer School, Club Fantasy's best ball podcast streaming exclusively on YouTube. I am your host, Austin Amandolia, and here with me, as always, is Matt Record. This is another CRAM session focused on a Week 17 matchup, so don't forget to like and subscribe so you get coverage of every single one of these Week 17 matchups. Again, we're discussing our 8th ranked game. We're in the top half now. Only have 7 left after this episode. The 8th ranked game is the Carolina Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which if you've been playing best ball for a while, you know this matchup has won people some money in the past. A couple years ago, this was the matchup you needed. Some stats and betting lines for this game. It has one of the lowest over-unders, so Vegas does not think that's going to be the route this year, but there's a lot of time for that to change. It has a 43.0 over-under, which is ranked 13th out of 16. Tampa Bay are 5-point home favorites, which is not that shocking given the woes of the Panthers in recent years. The combined Week 15 and 16 totals in these games is 178.5, which ranks 12th out of the 16 matchups in Week 17. The ADP of the first player is the end of round 2 and Mike Evans. This game will be outdoors, but in Tampa Bay, Florida in December, so should be some lovely weather. And we have given it a ranking of 5.7 out of 10. So, Matt, tell me, how does this matchup go well for best ball?
Yeah, so a lot of quarterback stuff here, right? Baker Mayfield continues to be awesome. I mean, he earned his contract last year with the Buccaneers, so he continues to sling it. That'd be huge for Tampa Bay. And then obviously Bryce Young makes an improvement. Maybe Xavier Legette. Some more offensive weapons there for him. He takes the step the second year. And yeah, it's a surprisingly low betting line. I think there's some value if you are into betting some stuff early here, because I do think Bryce Young makes the step this year. And obviously the Bucs have a decent defense, but the Panthers have a bad defense. I think there's going to be quite a few points scored in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really in on that. I like betting the over here. And I'm with you. I think Bryce Young will take a step forward in year 2. They've solidified the interior of the offensive line, which we know is a big deal for smaller quarterbacks like Bryce Young. They've got some better weapons in Carolina. And this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, they've been good at times, but they've also been boom or bust at times. So I think there is a pathway where you see Mike Evans catch 2 touchdowns for 100 yards, and Bryce Young is having to sling the ball, and you get a Xavier Legette touchdown, you get a Deontay Johnson touchdown. I really like this matchup. We're going to get into also who these teams play in weeks 15 and 16, and there's a team that both of them play in the playoffs of best ball tournaments that makes this a very interesting matchup to target, but we have to be prepared for the potential downside. How could this matchup go poorly?
Yeah, the exact opposite. The Buccaneers their defense they're in their boom period, right? And they just shut down a Panthers offense that doesn't figure it out like we think that they might. Really shutting that stuff down. And sort of vice versa. Like maybe Baker gets hurt, or that Tampa Bay offense doesn't do what we think it's going to do, and all of a sudden you have this divisional, or just a slugfest. So we don't think weather's going to be a factor, but yeah, there is a world that this is just a gross game, and Vegas is right, and there's not a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just go back, look at week 18 of last year where these two teams played in Carolina. It was a little bit, there was some weather that was disrupting that matchup. But if you remember, the Panthers were shut out in that game. It was a 9-0 gross slugfest. Bryce Young had less than 100 yards passing during that matchup. That is a possible outcome of this game, especially if you have some injuries all on the offensive line on the Carolina Panthers side. There's definitely some downside risk on this, depending on how the offenses perform or the defenses perform. I also think the way this game goes poorly is if the Panthers benefit from having Dave Canales and the Buccaneers are harmed by it. If they aren't able to perform like they did last year without Dave Canales there as the offensive coordinator, it could spell trouble for this matchup and could make it hit its floor. But there are plenty of ways to stack and correlate this matchup. Matt, what are your favorite ways to stack these teams?
I love almost everyone here in terms of ADP. Starting with the quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield's coming off as quarterback 23, which is phenomenal for me because I think he has those big spike weeks in him. And you're getting him as your QB2, maybe your QB3 very late in rounds. So I have loved grabbing me some Baker and then some Chris Godwin at the wide receiver 36. Hell, even Mike Evans at wide receiver 17. Like there's so much value there in that offense. I'm not super high on Rashad White, so I think they will be relying on Baker Mayfield slinging the ball. So give me any of them. As well as, I mean, Bryce Young is QB 27. Like he's another one of those free guys. I think he is going to be a little bit better. And because people don't have super high expectations for him, his weapons are equally being drafted super late. So you know me, I love my free stacks. So there's really no going wrong for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel very similarly. There are a couple players that I would avoid, but overall, I'm in a similar boat where I love taking these guys late. Like Adam Thielen, he had some ceiling weeks last week. You can easily get him in the 14th round and then stack with Bryce Young later on. I love having Kate Otten to come back with on the Tampa Bay side. I think he will score some touchdowns throughout the season and add points to your lineup. Even Chuba Hubbard, I'm a fan of. I haven't done a ton of it, but I know some people are high on Jatavion Sanders. That's a great pick. Trey Palmer is another guy that I thought he was great for the Buccaneers last year. So honestly, like for me, when I get to the back half of my draft, if I have any players that could potentially correlate with Tampa Bay and Carolina, I feel great about my odds to stack and correlate. And I don't think you can go that wrong. I think these are two offenses that are worth buying into because of the value and because they are, particularly on the Panther side, the Panthers are going to be behind in a lot of games. So the offense is going to have to pass to make up ground. With that in mind, who do you think is the best value at ADP of this matchup?
Yeah, I think there's two that come to mind, but I think the first one I'm going to say is Mike Evans. You know, wide receiver 17. He had a dynamite connection with Baker Mayfield last year. I mean, I don't remember exactly where he finished, but he was hired in wide receiver 17. They brought back Baker Mayfield specifically because of that, connection, and he was great. So I know he's another year older, but this is best ball. Like it's only for 1 year commitment. It's not dynasty. Like I don't know why we fade these older guys so much, but like getting him as probably your second or third wide receiver at wide receiver 17, probably your second, the way people are drafting nowadays, feels like a steal.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I really like the value there. I am also I can't get past Trey Palmer being free. He's so good. He's a great route runner. He's a fast receiver. I'm a little biased because I follow the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but I am a fan of him. I think the fact that you can get him in the 18th round every time guaranteed is pretty solid. So I like him as a value. But another player I'll just throw out there who's maybe a little bit less niche, I think Deontay Johnson is a solid value here. He's going in the 7th round. He has the potential to be a top 24 receiver easily. He gets the volume for it. He will be the number one pass catcher in this offense, and he is currently being drafted as the wide receiver 42. There's no reason he shouldn't be a starting receiver by ADP on underdog. So I think he is definitely a value to have. But on the flip side, what about the biggest trap? Who is a trap player for you in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm avoiding the Panthers running backs like the plague. So Jonathan Brooks, the rookie, coming in at the highest drafted running back for the Panthers at RB 25, which is scary to me that he's being the guy. We love our shiny things, especially this ADP. Being it's still when we're recording this July and in July, early August, people still like their shiny things, but. Chuba Hubbard has been a fine pro. They still have Miles Sanders, who obviously disappointed last year, but he's still a professional running back. So there's a lot of depth in that running back backcourt. But as you mentioned, the Panthers are going to be losing a lot of games. So I think they're going to be relying on throwing the ball. So there's a lot of running backs in that room, and I expect them to have a heavy dose of passing in that offense. And I'll let someone else deal with the Panthers backfield.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was also going to go with Jonathan Brooks as my first pick, but I'm going to flip this question on its head, and I'm going to say the biggest trap of this matchup is fading Chris Godwin. Why would you fade Chris Godwin? He's currently going off the board as wide receiver 36 on Underdog Fantasy. That is after Calvin Ridley, who was not that good last year. That is after Jaden Reed, who has a lot of competition for targets because Green Bay loves to spread the ball around. He's going after Hollywood Brown, who maybe does well in Kansas City. He's going after Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk. He's going after George Pickens. He's going after Zay Flowers. These are all players I would rather have Chris Godwin, or I would rather have Chris Godwin than all of these players. So I think if you are fading Chris Godwin this year, it is a trap, and you're going to be missing out because of the volume that he should have. Now, overall, in these two teams, what is your biggest question mark, Matt?
Bryce Young. It's Bryce Young. I mean, can he make the step? Like when the quarterback is good, it elevates everyone, right? Can he figure it out? I mean, last year was a real rough year for him, especially while watching some of the other rookie quarterbacks do nice things. I expect him to be better than he was. I mean, they're giving him every opportunity to do so with adding weapons, supporting him. But yeah, can he make that step?
Yeah, I think that is the biggest question mark of this matchup. Another one that I will throw out there is, does Rachaad White continue to be the second most utilized running back in the NFL? Like, the only player that had more touches than him last year was Christian McCaffrey. Rachaad White is not an efficient running back by any means. He got there off of volume last year. And so my question is, that continue? They brought in more running backs to give him some competition this year. So I'm curious, do they try and spread the ball around more? And if so, does he end up being kind of a trap at his ADP? But I alluded to this earlier. There are some other teams to target in this. If you're targeting Tampa Bay and Carolina, one in particular that I love. So Carolina, they play the Dallas Cowboys in week 15 and the Arizona Cardinals in week 16. Tampa Bay, they play the Los Angeles Chargers in week 15, and they play the Dallas Cowboys in week 16. So one of my favorite things to do with this matchup is to draft CeeDee Lamb in the first round and then get some Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers later on. You don't have to worry about the rest of your lineup. Like, you could draft all Panthers, Buccaneers, Cowboys, and Eagles, and you've got correlation for all three playoff matchups for your best ball leagues. Now, I might diversify a little bit more than that so that you're not overly reliant, but I do think you can focus on those four teams and you have some pretty solid correlation going into these matchups. Also, don't forget, with that point in mind, the Dallas Cowboys, they are good. They're going to be passing the ball. They're going to be scoring points. So I think this would be a great way to target your best ball leagues. And I have done that a time or two. But that is going to be all for this episode. Before you go, reminder to hit like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications to look out for our next episode where we break down our 7th favorite Week 17 matchup. And for Matt Record, I'm Austin Amendolia. This has been Summer School. And until next time, remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and best ball wins money. Catch you next time.